Hey everybody, welcome back. HSC Podcast 76. Big got Big Box Steve on the mic, got the Big Smooth, Eric, and Fresh Wes in the new command center, as he calls it, because it's gotta be for NFL, right? Like start of the season, starts on the 7th. They're a week away. I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited. I can't wait for this season. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of cool storylines out there, a lot of see who comes to play, who doesn't. So I think it's going to be one of the better NFL seasons. Hopefully, I think last year got progressively better. I think they're just working into a really solid NFL right now.
Yeah. And then typical Raider fashion, I was waiting 1 o'clock for their 53-man roster. Then it was like 5 o'clock at night that they released it. I'm like, thanks, guys. Just ridiculous.
Yeah, the boy, I don't know. Raiders this year. We'll see what happens.
Dude,
Yeah.
their schedule is brutal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brutal.
I don't know. You got Jimmy G. We'll see.
I don't
I don't.
know.
I'm not really loving the Derek Carr move now. That Jimmy G's the guy there.
Yeah. Well, and the whole thing is like we're getting rid of Derek Carr and we're saving all that money. And then what did they didn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you gave it to Jimmy G, right? And then what else did you do? You didn't like get any high priced, great free agent defensive players. That's what they need.
Right.
So
Yeah, they didn't
we'll
they didn't
see.
make a lot of defensive moves at all.
Oh, they got, well, they drafted Wilson and then they got some corners and a safety. So, I mean, they're not like superstars, but I think what the Raiders needed was just people that could do their job. You know what I mean? Like, all I care about is being in the top 15. That's all I care about. I don't care about being a top 10, top five. Just get a top 15 defense for once.
I'm
Right.
I'm just kind of waiting for someone to hit 35 touchdown passes like Daryl LaMonaco was the last one to do it in 1969. It's like that still
Well, it's
boggles my
not going to be
mind.
Jimmy G.
Unless he
Well,
throws
it
to
might be
Devontae
Aiden
Adams.
O'Connell. Goodbye, Aiden.
Bailey Zappi.
Yeah, you never know.
Oh,
You never know it. Because Jimmy G obviously prone to injury, so
Yeah.
Raiders could be looking at a new quarterback by week 6.
Yeah.
So let's get into this week's episode. We're going to go our playoff predictions, talk about the divisions. We'll talk a little fantasy football, talk about some roster moves. Just, kind of jumping out here, every week we do also our weekly game predictions. We had a good year last year. I think, we finished around 70% or so win picking wins and you know playoff teams we got the better part of them. So let's compare it. Let's see how we do this year, right? See if we can stay on a good, at least a good percentage. I mean, we remember we were comparing to stuff like the Bleacher Report and ESPN and things like that, and we were definitely picking better than some of the so-called experts.
Right.
All right, so first thing I want to do is let's just jump out into playoff teams. And as we talk about the playoff teams, I want to talk a little bit about the divisions as well. So start with the NFC. I think the NFC a little weaker than the AFC. We talked about that before. I don't think it was any easier to pick teams though, really. I mean, it was still hard
No.
because now it's still like the better, but who's better of the worst? So it's not like it
Right.
was easy to
That's
say.
yeah, it was tough to get teams to make the playoffs in the NFC for me. I was like,
Right,
who
right.
am I going to put in the playoffs?
Well, let's
playoffs.
start let's start with the number one seed. NFC. So I'll lead us off. I mean, it's hard not to pick the Eagles here. So I got the Eagles in the 1 seed. They didn't get any worse. I think they probably got a little bit better. They're getting older as a group. They got that Georgia defense happening now. Pretty soon they're just gonna have all Georgia guys on defense.
Yeah.
But I think they're really dangerous at the wide receiver position. It's very scary, to have a guy mobile like Jalen Hurts. I don't know that running back was a big loss for them moving on, because they're going to be running back by committee. They're get a lot thrown out of the backfield, a lot of touches in there. So I think their defense gets a little older, gets a little better, a little bit more solid in age. So I have the Eagles there at number one. Who you got 1 seed, Derek?
Well, I got the Eagles making the playoffs, but I'm not looking at who's the best teams. I'm looking at who they play to.
Right.
And for me, I got the Niners as the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Because I think the Seahawks are going to take a step down. The Rams are not what they used to be. And Cardinals, man, they're not even trying now.
Cardinals just phoned it in. I mean, you move off of what's his name? Isaiah
Simmons,
right? Isaiah Simmons. Like, why? Like, why do you get rid of him?
Well, they weren't going to re-sign him, so
right.
Well, then they cut Colt McCoy and they're left with Clayton Tune, the rookie, or Josh Dobbs, who they just picked up.
Right.
Just picked up, and they still haven't decided between the two.
It's going to be ugly. Yeah, I mean, obviously 49ers, strong team, right there, almost the Super Bowl team last year. I don't see them getting much worse. It really is going to come down to how well Purdy plays. And, if he just is a game manager, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, he's got Mitchell and McCaffrey to just give the ball to, and Samuel, Luke, Kittle have just.
Yeah, they got good receiving core and good running back, so they're kind of set there. Wes, what do you got at number one?
I got the Niners as well. I mean, it was close between the Eagles and Niners. I just think that, yeah, the NFC West. I think there's a little bit too much hype about Seattle right now because I mean, I don't think that they're a ready product as far as like Geno Smith. Um, I just Arizona's going to tank. I think that's pretty much a given, and I think the Rams are going to be. They're not going to be as bad as they were last year. They're going to be competitive, but I still think the Niners. When you start talking about the dual threat of McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, I think that Mike Shanahan is going to exploit defenses on the outside. He's going to hit McCaffrey in the middle, and I think they're gonna get the ball to Kittle a little bit more this year. I think Kittle's gonna have a huge year offensively. Defensively, they're gonna be lights out for the most part. I do think their secondary is a little suspect. It might cause them problems in the playoffs, but I mean, they should get through the NFC West.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear any more hype about Seattle, even though I love Seattle's secondary. I mean, they got backups for backups for backups. But I got to go with the Niners as a 1 seed at this point. Eagles schedule is brutal. It is not going to be tough to navigate that schedule.
Yeah, but anytime you're a division winner, right? You're playing a tough schedule, no matter what conference you come out or what division you're in. Yeah. It's always harder for the division winner. So San Francisco has some of those games too, not just NFC West games, but I do agree. Do you think losing your defensive guru, hurts the Niners on defense at all? Like, I know that you don't lose players there per se, but you do lose something, I think, but how much does that affect their defense?
Well, I mean, they lost Robert Saleh before. and then they put in D'Amico Ryan, so we don't know really like if they got a system in place of like just promoting from within. But I love D'Amico Ryan. Don't need D'Amico Ryan. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know if when you have everyone's been there for a while, it's kind of like you got the system down.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's you look
What do
at
you
their
think, Wes?
defense and it's solid for sure.
Yeah, but Bosa's holding out still, right?
That's yeah, he is. I think they'll figure it out. I mean, he's gonna get paid. So yeah, I mean, is the Niners defense gonna be not as good as last year? Probably, but their offense is gonna be better. You got the whole offseason with McCaffrey. I think they're drawing it up basically for him to be feature, get the most touches, but Deebo Samuel's gonna attack the edges. It's gonna be a lead, and then yeah, go ahead and roll up and have George Kittle going down the
Yeah.
field one-on-one coverage. It's they should have a better year offensively, and Purdy looks good. He looks like he's healthy. That was my one thing how's the elbow? It looks fine. Um, so
Yeah, sounds like it's time for CMC to get hurt again.
Well, because they're talking about him being the number one pick in fantasy football.
That's what I
So
mean.
yeah.
He's number one pick. He's going to do all this crazy stuff. I mean, it's almost like being on the Madden cover.
Well, luckily for them, they got Mitchell.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah,
it's not like they have a scrub
yeah, they got
backing them up.
Mitchell. They
yeah.
got Mitchell.
It's a great combo. Uh, so let's talk about the NFC East for a second. You know, I think that I just I don't know. I'm kind of never sold on the Cowboys. Um, I think the Giants are a formidable team. But the Commanders I think are trash. I'm not on the Commanders boat this year.
Commanders are just always mediocre, and their offense is never really good. Are they going to have their moments? Yes. Are they going to have a couple upsets? Probably. But they're not going to do anything like they do every year.
Yeah, they got rid of my favorite player too on their team. I mean, you gotta love Heineke, right?
Yeah. Is
Uh,
Heineke's not there
No,
anymore?
it's
no, I
not
said that's what I
Heineken.
said. They got rid of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I said they
Sam
got rid of
Howell, right?
they got rid of my favorite player, man, on their whole team. So I don't think the NFC East particularly is going to be great. Where it makes it hard on the Eagles. Obviously, Cowboys have good players. The Giants, they were on a roll last year. If they can keep the same energy that they had, they had a lot of momentum. They were playing a really high energy level last year. So um, the Giants definitely could be a little bit of a force there. But overall, the reason I have and the schedule didn't mean as much to me for the Eagles was just because I feel like they're heads above so many other teams in the NFC. I think they're just by far the best team in the NFC because I just don't
It's
believe there's a lot
it's
of good teams in the NFC. Like there's just
yeah.
not
I mean,
good teams.
they just got deeper and more talented on defense.
Yeah,
They're deep. They're deep. I mean, they're kind of like the Bills in that way, where man down, next man. It's like plug and play,
yeah,
next man up, and you're not having that big of a drop off in a sense. But I will say that when you have to, the first week of the season, you never know. They got to go to New England, and I know New England's New England, but you can't. I mean, you
it's
know,
it's
you
kind of
you
funny
go,
to say that now. New
yeah,
England's just New England. Like when
yeah,
Tom Brady was there,
But
it was like,
Belichick has a whole off season
yeah.
to scheme just for you.
And you're gonna get
right.
his best stuff in the first game, and the Jalen Hurts hype. We'll see if that balloon pops the first week. of course, I mean, they got to go to the Jets. They got the Dolphins. I don't care. Going to the Commanders, it is not the the Commanders always play them tough.
Yeah, it's not ideal,
They
obviously,
got
going
at
anywhere.
Kansas City. Then the next week they got to play the Bills. They got to play the Niners, at the Cowboys, at home against Seattle Giants. I mean, there's that stretch right there from week 11 to week 16. It's brutal, and they don't want to go into those games unhealthy because they can lose those games at home. They should win, like the Bills and the Niners.
Yeah, that's definitely tough, right? That's also what like Super Bowl schedules are made of,
Yeah,
Like when you come out of that schedule, especially if you come out on top of it, now you're just rolling, right?
yeah.
And so it could be good, it could be bad. I could, it's tough both ways. Let's see. So number two, Derek, who do you got it to?
Now, like I prefaced before, it's not the best teams. I'm just taking for record wise. I got the Saints being the 2 seed.
Wow.
They've got one of the easiest schedules in the NFL,
Yeah.
and they have a really good defense. I mean, they got Carr now with Thomas and Olave. I mean, they're going to be without Kamara for 3 games, but just only 3 games. I think they're going to be for what they got to play. I think they're going to be heads above a lot of the teams they play. So I got them being the 2 seed.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at their division, obviously there's not a lot of competition coming out of that
Right.
division. Uh I feel like Carolina, they played decently last year.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna say they're horrible, but it's gonna be a learning curve with Bryce Young. Um, and then Atlanta, again, they played decently last year. They had Bijan Robinson. So, and then Tampa they just mailed it in. Tampa's done. Like they're like complete reset. And so that's not anything there. So I don't know. I think Atlanta and Carolina can play them tough, even though I don't think they're good teams per se. But I think that division still seems like it could be tight to me.
Right. Well, I mean, you got Bryce Young, who's a rookie, and Desmond Ritter, who's a second-year guy who hasn't played at all. So
Right.
last year they had quarterbacks in both those places that had experience.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, you're still running with Marcus Mariota, and
well, he's made the playoffs before.
yeah. No, he's not horrible, but I mean, I mean, I know that's tough for all those teams. I think that's definitely Saints have a huge advantage there in that division. Uh, Now the 2 seed, that's tough. That because that's going to take a good record to take home the second seed.
Well, you wonder, though, in the NFC, is it really going to be that great of records?
Right? Yeah, you never know, right? Well, so you got the 2 seed.
I got the Saints as well. If now it this is just it's a preview of the spreads. They are favored in every single game except two, and it should be actually one because they're not favored against Minnesota at Minnesota.
Yeah,
They should be. So basically they're not favored in one game in this in it's at Green Bay, and I agree with that week 3 because I think Green Bay is going to be better than people think. They're going to be tough. There's going to be a learning curve for Jordan Love, but they got way too much on offense, and their defense will probably play better this year. But this is they start with the Titans. Oh, we got Carolina. They got Tampa Bay. They got Houston. Jacksonville's going to be tough, but it's home. Chicago home. Detroit home. Um, I think the Falcons are going to be tough, just because Bijan Robinson, I think, is going to have a big year. He's just going to come out and he's going to be explosive.
yeah.
And you got London, you got that's going to be tough for them, but I think they navigate through it and they get the second seed.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you look at their schedule, I think a schedule definitely helps them a lot for sure. And I think they made some good moves. I think Carr helps them a lot as well. And you still got, um, and then, I mean, you bring Jimmy Graham back. He's a 36-year-old tight end. That means he's going to have a big year, right?
Yeah.
Is it
I mean,
36
And
the tight
everyone
end year?
forgets too, the Saints had a top 5 defense last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And forget about like a tight end. I think they're going to utilize Taysom Hill a little bit more. Because it's kind of like you got Colmera, and then you got Jamal Williams, who's a workhorse, and even that rookie Kendall Miller, he's going to get. They got a three-headed monster there.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's pretty much running back by committee. They're going to have Taysom Hill just for those red zone plays that they can utilize him in a lot. They have him at tight end, but they're going to utilize him in a lot of different ways. And receivers, I mean, Olave is legit. Like, I think he's going to have a big year. Carr and him are going to have probably a pretty decent connection. And
Yeah. He's a
and
great,
and
slot
and if
guy.
Michael Thomas is on the field,
Yeah.
that's kind of scary. They could do some damage.
Yes, they stay healthy and their defense plays good again. I definitely see them easily handling that division. So but not there's a lot of good stuff to say about the Saints. So we'll see how they come out there. I got the 49ers at 2. As again, they're playing in a weaker division this year. I think. Uh, I also believe that the way that their defense was playing last year, they continue to play like that. It just makes it hard for teams, offensively to stay on the field, and that gives Purdy and the offense a lot more chance to score. And I think they're gonna be hard to stop when they have the ball a lot, And I think the defense helps them out that way. But we already talked quite a bit about the 49ers, but yeah, that's my 2 seed. Let's see, West 3 seed.
I got the Eagles. Um, I mean, I think I think the Cowboys are going to implode, so they're not going to be really in the Eagles' ways. I mean, defensively, of course, the Cowboys are legit, but offensively, I don't see anybody in that division really competing with them, and it's just, I mean, defensively, they've gotten a lot stronger. Um, I think Jalen Hurts is going to be playing at a Pro Bowl level. I just don't. I think some teams they're going to start figuring out ways to make him throw the football more. And I still think that if you apply a certain amount of pressure to Jalen Hurts, he's average throwing the football still. I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
you're going to probably see some bad throws. He's going to probably turn the ball over. And I think that's just a reason why they wouldn't be a shoo-in for a 2 seed or even a 1 seed. So
It's tough to put pressure on a guy though when he's got Devonta Smith and AJ Brown out there, because that means you're usually going to put them in some kind of one-on-one coverage, um, or give up a lot of underneath stuff, which both of those guys are pretty good at catching and running. I definitely see when you talk about the Eagles, they played so well last year. At one point, obviously they were looking like they were going to almost have a perfect season, right? Or at least maybe just one loss. So I think that you're coming off of a Super Bowl loss. It's kind of a headspace thing. It's like, are they coming out? Are they going to come back with the extra fire, or are they going to come out with maybe lackluster? Right.
well,
So it's a bit of a gamble.
history says, I mean, there's only been 2 teams that have lost the Super Bowl and came back and won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And one of them was the Patriots. So yeah, it's usually historically there's a lull, there's something like around the team after you lose the Super Bowl. And look at the Rams. Talk about imploding. Rams win the Super Bowl and they have a season like that.
Yeah,
Like, ouch.
that's rough.
I think they have the worst record actually for
The Super
winning the
Bowl
Super
previous,
Bowl.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's real bad. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, Eagles winning if they win their division, they're going to come in, in the top four seeds. So you got them there at 3. Um, I got a kind of maybe a surprise to some. I know some people are saying they're a little overhyped, but I got the Lions coming in at the 3 seed. I think the Lions has done a lot of good things. I think they added their roster is looking really solid right now, and their defense has got a chance to develop over the year. They weren't the greatest defense, obviously, but I like Dan Campbell. I think he's got a good shot at winning that division this year, and I don't think it's going to take a phenomenal record to win it, but I think at the end, the Lions come out on top there. The thing with the NFC, the Central is it's man. I mean, it's such a coin flip for some of these teams. As you see these game over game, because like you look at Green Bay against Minnesota, Green Bay against Chicago, Lions against Green Bay, Minnesota against Chicago. Like it's like, well, who's really going to win these games? Like I don't think any of those are like laydowns to where you think that team's for sure going to win this game. There's a couple maybe at home in certain situations where I would say I feel really comfortable with one of the teams, but I think they're just it's kind of like a big that's like they're going into a NASCAR race where they're just all going to be bumping and turning and jockeying for position and out there. So I do think the Lions have the edge right now because of their coach, because of the way they played last year, finished last year. I think they have a lot of momentum and steam headed into this year. So I got the Lions at the 3 spot.
I too have
Derek,
the Lions at the 3 spot, and
nice.
I think though they're more actually. A little disagreement is I think they're head and shoulders above everyone else in that division right now. Talent wise, I think Minnesota takes a huge step back. Green Bay, I don't know what I'm going to see out of Jordan Love. They're going to be okay. I do think the Bears will be better. But I think the Lions showed what it is, like a young team does, where they have baby steps. You go from being horrible to getting really competitive and almost making the playoffs to now making the playoffs. And so, yeah, I got the Lions as my 3 seed.
Yeah, my fear with the Lions, even though I have them there as well, is defense still.
Yeah.
Their defense can give up a lot of points quickly, and that's scary in the NFL in general, just because there's so many weapons. It doesn't matter how like horrible your team is, there's weapons, right? And so that's my fear with the Lions. But I do believe that their defense has gotten better, and then that playing together for a little longer, um, it helps them out a lot, right? So we'll see what happens, but I'm definitely right there with you with the Lions.
I think they got better though as the season went on with their defense. Their defense was horrible at the very beginning of the season, but
Oh yeah, they were by far like I think they were second to last at one point.
yeah, I mean they were giving up.
Yeah, it again it's like it was the scoring and flurries on them that really worries me when you look at the defense. When it's like it's maybe you didn't give up a lot of points the whole game, but you gave up rapid points, and so that's always a fear. But
Yeah, I
and
mean in
I
their last 6 games, besides getting like that weird Carolina game where they got blown out and it was like, what was going on?
get blown out by Carolina. That's a rough
Yeah,
day at the office.
they only gave up 20 points in one of the other 5 games.
Yeah.
They were under 20 in all the others. So their defense improved over the season. And I think that, like you said, is a credit to Dan Campbell.
Yeah. Well, and
I think he's a
with
really good
Aaron Glenn,
Aaron
right?
Glenn. Yes,
Aaron
Aaron Glenn.
Glenn's I think he's a solid defensive coordinator as well.
Yeah, the Lions though have no depth on defense.
Yeah.
I mean, they only have right now that are signed basically 6 backups on the whole defense. So they're going to be signing a lot of free agents and rookies to contribute. And it's kind of one of those things where these rookies can come in, you know what, they could ball, and they might have to ball because they might be playing early in the season, and some of these guys just might be playmakers. So you know, you never know. I mean, you know, their offense is going to be legit. So either, you know, they got to outscore teams, or you know, they're going to have maybe some playmakers in the secondary. Right. They got some serious holes in the secondary. You know.
Yeah, their secondary is not the greatest. I mean, it's not horrible, but yeah, they're going to give up points in the secondary for sure. Right. But I also think they score a lot of points too. So I think that's good. It's going to keep them in games no matter what, that they're going to have the ability to score. Let's see. Number 4 seed. So it's me leading off here. So I have the Saints here. I think the Saints win that division. It's the record for me. You guys got them at 2. I got them at 4 as a division winner. I just don't know how good their record's going to be. I think they win the division. And you know, when you look at, there's a cohesiveness and a gelling that team has to have, and they haven't had that yet. So what I'm fearing is their start to the season. Like if they come out hot, I think they could be a 2 seed, right? But if they lose a couple of those games that they should win, or you know, even games that you look at as, you know, close games, the gelling and cohesiveness of the Saints worries me at the beginning of the season. So I definitely think they get better as the season goes on and become real tough come playoff time. So I got the Saints there at 4. Derek, what do you got for?
I got the Eagles. I mean, I'm not saying they're not going to go far in the playoffs. I just think they're going to have a little bit of a hangover. They're still going to be the best team in the East, but not as good as a record as last year. Because last year they had an easy schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot easier than this year for sure. You know, we talked about the Eagles and there. That's tough though, you know, coming in at a 4 seed. So we'll see. Got a couple differences there. I mean, obviously we got all the same teams, but we just have them in different spots. Wes, who you got for?
I got the Lions. I think. I mean, honestly, I think they will win the first game against Kansas City. That's going to be maybe a surprise to everybody, but they got to go to Baltimore. They do have to go to the Chargers. That's going to be tough. They got to go to the Saints, so they'll lose some of these games. And I don't care. The Bears are going to be offensively. They're going to be a juggernaut. They might, you know, there's games there they can lose. I even think that Dallas is going to be desperate, and they might lose to Dallas late in the season. You know, they're still going to be good. I think they're going to do their damage in the playoffs. I think they're one of those teams that, you know, you always got to look at Jared Goff too. It is Jared Goff. This is the guy that is like the only quarterback that didn't score in the Super Bowl. Like the only team besides the Dolphins, this is 1970s. I mean, they didn't score back then anyways. I mean, big games, you don't know. Better offense this year. Jameson Williams is going to be there at some point, as long as he doesn't do anything else stupid, like ridiculously stupid.
Well, he already did that, so
yeah, but he's going to be back, and he's going to have so many weapons at his disposal. They're going to throw the ball to Gibbs, I think, a lot, and he's going to have that. He's going to be dynamic in the passing game and help it open up everybody. And I think it's going to take a while for everybody to gel in a sense. I think they do their damage in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're a momentum team.
I, screaming to the rooftops last year, and I still think so. Amon St. Brown is close to a top 5 wide receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when with the addition of Jameson Williams playing, if he ever plays more, I think that hurts St. Brown a little bit, especially now with having a guy like Gibbs if they start throwing him the ball out a lot of the backfield. But as far as like talent level, yeah, I think he's right there. He may not end up with the statistics for people to put him there, but he's definitely a really good wide receiver on his talent level. So here's where it's going to get interesting, right? So we've kind of talked about all the divisions and the division winners here. So let's run just through our wild cards now. Let's see. So who's leading us? Derek, you're leading us off here with your 5 seed.
All my wild cards for the NFC are by default. I would like to say that only 4 teams should qualify for the playoffs in the NFC. So looking at it just because like the talent wise, even though I think their coach is horrible and I think they've underperformed and their quarterback is the most overrated quarterback in all the NFL, I gotta go Cowboys at 5.
Yeah,
I mean,
Cowboys are.
Mike Parsons, their defense is really too strong not to get them wins.
Yeah, it's just one of those picks. Like you feel like you have to pick them sometimes by default, right? Just because they have so much talent on their team, but then they just squander it. So it's also hard for me to ever get on the Cowboys train. But yeah, I mean, Cowboys obviously got a lot of talent. So let's see, Wes, what do you got at 5?
I got the Seahawks. Um, I got them finishing 11-6. I just think they have a lot of pieces. I like Shama running back. I think he's going to contribute huge. I think they got running back by committee. They got DK Metcalf. I don't care who your quarterback is. I mean, except Drew Lock. I mean, if it ends
Except
up
Drew
with Drew
Lock.
Lock, but I saw Drew Lock throw a couple passes, and I was watching some of the preseason against Green Bay. He does have a cannon. The only problem is he throws it to the wrong team too much.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, those weapons on the outside, Digsby, I think he's going to be he's going to have a great year in the slot, helping out Lockett. Lockett's always Mr. Reliable, and their defense, I think, is going to be. I think they're going to get some turnovers this year. I think. I just am not sold on Geno Smith, whether it's the fact that he might get hurt or, they're going to apply pressure probably more than there's no surprises this year. People are going to come out with their A game against the Seahawks, and I just don't think they're going to be. I mean, 11-6 is good,
Yeah.
but they're not going to win the division.
5 seed making the playoffs. I'd say
there's this noise that like, oh yeah, they're gonna win the division. Like,
yeah, I mean,
you are
that's tough.
stretching.
Yeah. I mean, I like the Seahawks. I think they did a lot of good things. I think their defense was good last year with a lot of young guys, and now coming back, I think they're going to be real solid. And obviously, they helped themselves out on offense. It really does come down to how well Geno Smith plays. If he could stay healthy and keep making good decisions like he did last year with the ball, not forcing a lot of throws, I think that's what helps them this year is if their
But
offense.
they got some East Coast games, and they hate traveling to the East Coast. I mean, they got to go play the Giants. I say they lose. They got to go play the Ravens East Coast. They lose. I think it's just their schedule is, and the Steelers. I know it's the Steelers, but they could beat anybody any week.
Yeah.
In Seattle, you just yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Seahawks. I got I had the Giants at 5 because I think the Giants. I think it's kind of that year for the Giants where it's time for them to prove something. They had a good year last year. They did well, made the playoffs. played
with
great.
nothing.
Yeah, with nothing. I think I mean I love their coach. Dayball to me is he's just a solid coach, and um, as long as Saquon comes back with head in the game and plays like he did last year, Daniel Jones is a good quarterback. He runs the ball well. As long as he doesn't, again, he just got to be a little smarter with the ball sometimes on his throws. So it comes down to how well Jones plays, and then if you get that full buy-in from Saquon, their defense is good. They put a lot of pressure, inside pressure too, makes it hard for teams to run. They put a lot of pressure on the quarterback naturally without too many blitzes. So I got the Giants there with the Commanders. I don't think having a great year, and the Cowboys questionable to me. I think the Giants sneak in there and get the fifth seed. All right, so Wes, what do you got at 6?
I got the Giants as well. Yeah, I mean, Daniel Jones looked pretty darn good in the preseason. He's got Waller now. He's got weapons. Saquon's back to a certain extent. Um, Hyatt, I think Jalen Hyatt's gonna, come out and, they got weapons. They got more weapons on offense this year, which they didn't have so much last year.
Right.
More speed here and defensively, yeah, it's like they're gonna be right. I mean, yeah, their division is the Commanders again. They're not any sort of threat here, but they got some tough games now. So I mean, they do have to go out to Vegas and play the Raiders.
Oh yeah, that's a tough one.
But come on, it's the NFL. Come on,
Yeah, no.
Vegas.
Yeah,
You never
it's
know what
true.
can happen.
I mean,
The
yeah,
Waller
yeah,
game.
yeah. Yeah, we'll see how Waller does there, but I agree they got a lot more weapons, and that's why I have them there as well. So, um, I got them at 5th. You got
But
them
they
6th.
gotta go in consecutive weeks. They gotta go to the Saints and the Eagles. They gotta play the Eagles in 2 times in 3 weeks. I mean,
Yeah,
you gotta play at the Bills. They gotta play at the Bills and at the Dolphins
yeah,
and at the 49ers. And basically at the it's they could. I just don't. I think if they didn't have such a tough schedule like that, I think they would. They'd have a chance to be a 5 or you never know. I mean, Daniel Jones could come out and light it up. Then it's all bets are off.
yeah. I mean, I like the Giants this year. We'll see what you do. They'll probably let me down, but I'm giving them some credit. Let's see, 6. I got the Seahawks here. I think they have a good enough team to come in as a playoff team, and 6th seed is not that unachievable. I think they did a lot of good things for themselves on offense. Their defense is just getting better, so I got them back in the playoffs here. Let's see, Derek, what do you got at 6?
Giants. I think
Giants.
coaching matters, and Dave Ball's
Yeah.
a really good coach. I just,
Yep.
getting off a tangent here, but like, I don't know, being a Raider fan, they're like, oh, well, Josh McDaniels just needs his players, and then he'll be good. Brian Daboll didn't have his players, and you know what? He made the playoffs. And
Yeah.
can you even name a wide receiver they had?
Yeah, it's like Slayton was the only one, right, for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah, they didn't have a lot for sure, and they didn't have a great, um, they just had lost their tight end, right? So Ingram just went to Jacksonville, so
yeah,
they didn't
they didn't
really
have much
have
at all.
great tight end, and Saquon, nobody knew how well he was going to perform because he hadn't been,
Right.
up to what he'd been doing. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think coaching does matter, and I think that's what helped them last year, and it's going to help them even more this year.
Yeah, now that he has weapons.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. So 7 seed. I'm gonna throw you guys off on this one, but you should expect it coming. I think the Bears sneak in here for a 7 seed, and it's what Wes kind of mentioned it earlier. You just don't know how good their offense is going to be, and there's that creates a problem if it ends up being better than people think. Their defense isn't gonna finish great, right? But with the add of Moore, and if Fields comes out and he does a lot of what he did last year, but then now has a couple targets to throw to, Mooney gets less, it's more open because of DJ Moore. Komet gets more open, and Herbert is very solid, and they added what's his name at running back as well. So Foreman, it's it's a stretch, but when I looked at the teams available, I was like, why not? Why not the Bears? Because who else? So it's a little bit of a stretch, but I don't think it's too far of a stretch, especially if their offense comes out and plays like it can, because I think their offense is dangerous. Derek, what do you got? 7.
I got the Bears.
Oh, nice.
I think, you got to look at, and this is also, it's like you have to look at teams regressing because you always pick the same teams and then you're like, oh my gosh, look at the Rams. What happened?
Right.
Like last year was the Cardinals and the Rams. This year, I think it's the Seahawks and the Vikings that are going to regress. And so I got the Bears sneaking in. They wouldn't be in the top, I don't even think 14 in the AFC,
Right.
but in the NFC, they make 7.
Yeah, my worry was the Packers, because even with Jordan Love, I think the Packers are young, their defense is solid, they have a lot of playmakers. So I think the Packers, the way those games go and the way the games go with the Vikings are really going to determine a lot of the Bears' chances there. So the Packers worry me in that scenario. But yeah, I agree that there is that regression happening with a lot of teams. And I think the NFC is just getting beat up with it. A lot of regressing teams. Last week got a 7.
I got the Cowboys. It's hard for me to do this because I really, I'm rooting for the Bears, and I think they could get it. I just think it's hard to just sit that defense out of the playoffs. I think Mike Parsons is going to light up this year. That defense might not be as good. I mean, statistically, they might not be as good, but I think he's going to have even a bigger year, more of an impact on defense. So I think that gets them basically 9 wins, and I think that's about all they're going to get is 9 wins. I think they get 9. They go 9-8. They're honestly they shouldn't make the playoffs, but they will. I think. That stretch they could go 2-4 by week 6 because they got go to the Niners, to the Chargers. They're 2-4. Everyone's gonna panic like everybody does about them. They got to go to the Eagles. I mean, they're gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard pressed for them to get above 500, especially they got to finish with at Buffalo, at Miami, at home against Detroit. It'd be hilarious if the last week of the season they lost to the Commanders. Or whatever they're going to call themselves next year.
Yeah.
Because you know what? That would be epic. And they might even do that and still make the playoffs in the NFC. So
you guys both got 3 NFC East teams going. So that's the kind of the dominant division there in the NFC for you guys. Because I mean, we kind of all have the same division winners. For the most part, it's the same playoff teams with a couple switches in there, between Cowboys, Seahawks, and Bears. And I think there are some other teams out there that I think have a shot. But
I
like
took
you're
the
saying,
Falcons out. I
it's
had
such
the
a
Falcons
coin
all
flip.
day. All day I had the
Yeah.
Falcons in. And I was like, eh.
Do you trust Desmond Ritter?
Yeah,
that's the problem. Do you trust Ritter? But their weapons are legit.
Right. But look how Carolina played last year. It's not like they're going to have a harder schedule this year. And now they have Bryce Young. What if he comes around quicker? Then you think Carolina could be a good team out there. But yeah, I mean Atlanta definitely. Like you're relying on Ritter, which I think is their biggest downfall, because I think they have a solid team. If he doesn't make mistakes and he uses his feet well, you know, you never know there.
I think they got Taylor Heineke as their backup.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Just put him in.
Yeah.
It's the greatest quarterback, the Commanders. So NFC was tough though on those senses, but I think we're in a lot of agreement there, which is crazy. So if we're wrong, then we're real wrong.
I think a lot of people are going to be wrong because just look at it's just top heavy,
Yeah,
you know.
it is. Well, let's jump into the AFC because we spent a lot of time on the NFC. Let's get into the AFC
Too
here.
much.
Yeah. um, Derek, why don't you lead us off with your number one seed in the AFC?
Well, I'm not making the mistake this year. It's the Chiefs. I hate
Yeah,
them so much, but I mean, the Raiders are down, the Broncos are down. I think the Chargers take a step back, so I think they got the division handled. So yeah, I
yeah.
got until someone does it. I mean, it's got to be the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean it's hard with what's in their division. Obviously, they're going to have a tough schedule. So it is one of those things that you got to win outside the division too. But
They do it
you're
every
right.
year.
Yeah, they're without the Raiders and Broncos, I think putting up too much, you know, defense against them. I think KC really has a good shot,
Chargers never do
out there.
anything against them either, so it's
Yeah. I meant for the division, but yeah, game by game wise, yeah, they I don't think any of those three teams handle KC at all. I think KC just dominates them for the most part, at least lately. So Wes, what do you got at one?
I get Kansas City too. I mean, I
I
I,
mean,
I do
it's
think
hard not to, right?
they're going to lose the first game, but I mean, yeah, the division. I mean, the Broncos are the Broncos. Like the Raiders, sadly, I just don't see them competing very well with Kansas City. And I think the Chargers do take a step back because they should have fired the freaking coach. It's ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
they might be in some games and he'll do something stupid and they'll lose the game. I mean, so I mean, they could sweep the division as far as I'm concerned. They do got the Bills at home. They got Cincinnati at home. Uh, yeah, I mean, you got the Eagles at home, the Dolphins at home. I mean, I just think they go. I think they go. I think they go 13-4.
Yeah, I like KC to win that division for sure. It's an easy wrap up. I just I don't know. Every time I look at their roster, it's like, man, who do they really have? But then they keep winning games. It just
Yeah,
sucks because you're like, you shouldn't be this good, but somehow they're that good without having really great players. I mean, obviously Mahomes is great and Kelsey's great. But you look at all of the other guys and they're just not standouts. They're not eye poppers. So for that reason, I go back to the Bills. So maybe it's a mistake, but I think the Bills, um, they're for me they're a regular season team. Like they're gonna win the regular season. Will they win the Super Bowl? Probably not, but they're gonna win the regular season. So I don't think the Bills got any worse. I think they added players. I think Josh Allen at some point has to feel like he has a chip on his shoulder and has something to prove. Like either prove yourself or like stop being called one of the top quarterbacks. Because at this point,
and
dude, you're
stop
not
doing
doing
commercials. I don't want to see any more Josh Allen commercials.
it.
It's
Right.
starting to get ridiculous. Like, really, Josh? Come
Yeah.
on.
Tell you what a
You're
Super
not
Bowl.
you're not Baker Mayfield, man. You could actually play. Come on, stop here. You know?
Yeah. So
Madden
I'm a
curse too.
yeah, yeah. But he's a tough guy though. Like
Oh
it
yeah.
has to be a bad
It's kind of
injury.
funny in a sense. It was funny last year. It's kind of funny, but you also have to understand that people were expecting you last year to win it and you didn't
Yeah.
win. So let's just let's you got to win this year.
Yeah.
Windows closing.
Let's see. It's two seed. Wes, you got it too.
Yeah, I got the Bills too. Um, I mean, they do have some tough road games. They do have to go and play Cincinnati. Uh, they got first week against the Jet. I think that's going to be an interesting game. That's going to maybe dictate some things early in the season. But for the most part, they got Cowboys at home. It's Cowboys. Who cares? I think they lock in the 2 seed. Yeah, like you said, they're a regular season team. You know,
The
they
tough part for the Bills is they do play in a real tough division. It's not easy going up there. Even when the worst team now is the Patriots, that's doesn't say a lot of good things for your record, because Miami and the Jets obviously, I think, got better.
yeah. I
So
mean,
it's tough for the Bills there, but yeah, I think they still win it. Yeah, that's why I got them at 1. You got them at 2. Uh, my 2, I got the Bengals here, and I think it's the year, kind of what you just said, where the window's closing. Like the Bengals, they got to do it if they're going to do it, and I think a lot of players, the coach, they all realize this, and I think they're going to push a little bit harder this year than they did in the past. I think they stay healthier, hopefully for them. Otherwise they're not getting the 2 seed if they don't stay healthy, because that's a big part of their game. Like if they all stay healthy, they're real tough to beat. And with the experience building for them as far as getting used to playing in big games, I think that helps them in some of these big games this year they're going to be playing in as well. And I think they come in at 2. Derek, what do you got at 2?
My 2 is another great regular season team. And I'm riding this train again this year. I'm
No,
going the
Baltimore.
Ravens.
Big Baltimore. But
Dude,
with
they made
Lamar,
the playoffs last
right,
year with Tyler
right.
Huntley and almost beat the Bengals in the playoffs. And they
Yeah,
added OBJ.
yeah. And I mean, Lamar got paid. Hopefully that is incentive for him to, show his value. And Lamar, if he could stay healthy, is obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So it doesn't hurt your chances. Um, and I had a tough time between the Ravens and the Bengals for sure. I think it still remains to be seen for me for the Ravens. Like you just, but yeah, I mean, you're right. They did make the playoffs last year, and almost won the game. So there's nothing wrong with that.
And how many people you lose your quarterback and still make the playoffs, right?
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. So it's not. I think they're right there as well. I like the Ravens. I got 3 seed. I got Kansas City here, which I think they easily win their division. But for me, again, I just like, how do they keep winning so much? I get it. Mahomes is great, but come on. Like at some point, like you have to have players too, right? No, I guess he doesn't. Uh, but I think they easily win the division. I do think they lose some out of division games, because I just can't see them beating some of these teams. But they did win the Super Bowl, so what can you say? Uh, Derek, what do you got at 3?
and then I'm going to preface this again. It's not the best teams. I'm just going by what's going to be the record. I've got the Jags at 3, the Jaguars.
Yeah,
Because look at who's in their division.
I know it's so bad.
So, I mean, they're going to win at least 6 games easy. So, yeah, I got the Jags here at 3. I don't think I actually think they are like the 7th best team in the conference, but I got them as a 3 seed.
Right, because they win the division, so it's hard to. Um, you had to put them in there. Wes, what do you got at 3?
I got Baltimore. Um, their schedule. I mean, their schedule just seems more favorable than Cincinnati's. I think they're going to go back and forth, of course, again this year. I think the additions that the weapons they added for Lamar Jackson. I think Trey Flowers is going to be dynamic. You know, it's it OBJ. I think is going to have a good year, and I think Lamar Jackson's going to be back healthy. Their defense is pretty stout. It was good last year, I think. And their first 7 games, I mean, they start out with the Texans. Of course, they got the Bengals, but then you got Indianapolis, you got the Browns. I don't care what anybody says about the Steelers. It's the Steelers, the Titans, the Cardinals, the Browns again. I mean, it's their schedule is just more favorable. End of the season, they got a couple tough games, but
Right.
I think they're going to get the 3 seed.
Yeah, they definitely have the benefit of the easier schedule, obviously. But that's like you guys were saying earlier, the problem is it's the NFL, right? So it's like, well, we're going to beat the Browns, but then you go and you lose to the Browns,
You lose to the Browns, and even the
right?
Steelers could be like that. I mean,
Right.
everyone thinks the Steelers would be so good. They might be good.
I
They might
don't know.
play really good a couple weeks out of the year, but it could be that week. You just don't.
Does everybody think the Steelers are going to be good?
Yeah, I'm like following
Yeah.
Steelers
Oh
fans,
man.
so it's loud. There's a lot of noise.
I mean,
Like Kenny
is it?
Pickett, man.
It's still Kenny Pickett, right?
He's
I
like
mean,
Terry Bradshaw already.
don't get like correct me if I'm
I'm
wrong.
not
Kenny
even gonna
Pickett's
get
still
you
the
started on
quarterback,
Kenny Pickett because that's like you and Derek and Russell Wilson did,
right?
and me and Mac Jones. Don't get me started on Mac Jones, man.
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
coming. I'm coming
the
this
guy,
year.
the guy's got little hands.
Oh God, dude, not again.
I'm just not. I'm not a Kenny Pickett fan, obviously, but
He could be a
this
hand
this
model, Steve.
the Steelers could be tough. Yeah, what do like baby food? Uh, the Steelers defense is solid, and TJ Watt, obviously, I think to me is probably the best defensive player in the
Oh yeah.
league. So that helps a lot, right?
TJ Watt could account. He could wreck about 5 teams in the NFL
Yeah,
in
by
5 games.
himself.
Well, and they got Highsmith, they've got Hayward. I mean, their whole defensive line.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not that the Steelers. I don't see the Steelers, doing a lot of damage, but I also don't think it's ever an easy game. So
No.
those games are tough. Let's see, 4 seed. Derek, what do you got?
I got the Bills. I mean, they're going to win the division. I just think it's tougher than everyone else has. They have the
Yeah.
toughest route, so I got them for.
Yeah, I mean, not much more to say about the Bills. Wes, what do you got it for?
Jacksonville. Um, I think they could be potent on offense. Etienne, I think he had such a great year last year. He can have an even better year this year, and
Yeah.
really, they could do a lot of damage in the playoffs. You got Ridley, Zay Jones on the outside now. You just defensively, I think they're better. They're I think they're going to play better. And it's the AFC South. I mean, they're all expansion teams at this point, so they should win almost every game in the AFC South.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the Jags here too. I really like the addition of Calvin Ridley. He's looked good in camp. He's looked good even in a little limited preseason stuff. He's running routes really well. He looks like old Calvin Ridley, and so I think that's great for them. And it really comes down to Trevor Lawrence, right? Can he fulfill his potential? If he does, they easily win the division. They come in at that 4 seed. Man, not a lot of difference happening here too much. It's the first time we have a division winner different though. I got the
Yeah.
Bengals and you guys got the Ravens. So
Well,
out of the 7 or the 8 division winners, we have all the same except I got the Bengals, you guys got the Ravens. But let's get into the wild cards here. Wes, lead us off. Is your 5 seed?
I got the Bengals and Mr. Joe Burrow, even though I think he can be ready for week one, but with his calf, the golden calf. Um, but it's just that combination. I mean, talk about, going from Chase. Chase is gonna have a big year. Higgins is gonna have a big year, and then Boyd's your third receiver.
Right. It's
And
tough.
then pick your poison. And Mixon's going to have a big game. So offensively, I think they're fine. I think defensively I think they'll be fine too. They can they plug and play. They lost some people, but in the off season. But I think because of that, maybe they get the wild card instead of win the division. But it's gonna be close. It's gonna be like they won the division anyways, compared to the other teams. So.
Yeah. So here's where I have the Ravens. Obviously, Bengals and Ravens seem to be interchangeable, but I think the Ravens, again, for me, there's always that gelling part, right? With new players coming in, Lamar coming back. But they have an easy schedule to start off, so that's favorable for them. So I think even though that schedule looks easy, I still think it comes down to those games. Like, do they get through those games with a really solid record? And if they do, they may win the division. If they don't, they lose a couple games, but I think they might. Then I think they come in there at the 5 seed. Let's see,
And
Derek, what do you got?
I got the Bengals.
The Bengals. Oh
And I
man.
mean, the big thing is what you said earlier, Steve, is this might be their last hurrah
Right.
because T. Higgins might be gone, Joe Mixon might be gone. So it's just going to be Burrow and Chase, and I don't know if that's going to be enough to put them back into the top. So they do have lots of sense of urgency, but I just don't. They're going to go in as a wild card, but hey, that's what they did 2
Yeah.
years ago, right?
Yeah, wild cards can get there just as easily, right? It's
Yeah.
so it's one extra game. Let's see, 6 seed. This should get interesting. Uh, oh, I'm up. So I got the Dolphins here. I think it's a coin toss between the Jets and the Dolphins who makes this spot. And I hate Aaron Rodgers, so I'm going to take the Dolphins. I also do believe the Dolphins have so many weapons on offense. It's just, how do you cover both Waddle and Tyreek Hill? Like, that's a tough ask for any secondary.
Like knocking Tua out of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's your only chance, right? Is you gotta hurt their quarterback again, and that's how you keep them out of the playoffs. But I also really love Mosier too. I think his speed is way underrated. He's so fast, um, and he's not a bad running back at all if he stays healthy. So the Dolphins' defense will be the question, but I think I'm giving it to him over the Jets. I think there's other teams obviously that could go, but for me at this particular spot, it was between those two, and I've taken the Dolphins.
I got the Jets, Jets.
Jets.
Um, it's basically comes down to their defense was so good last year, and their quarterback was so bad that they lost
Yeah.
games that they should have easily won. And I know Aaron Rodgers is not prime Aaron Rodgers, but you don't need to prime Aaron Rodgers for that team. And you have Garrett Wilson. You got the greatest receiving running back of all
Of
time, and
all
Dalvin
time,
Cook.
Wes, it's the greatest of all time.
So I got the Jets. And like you said, it's a coin flip between the Jets and the Dolphins, and I got the Jets
Yeah.
because I don't know if Tua's going to stay healthy all year.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a big question mark for me. And I think you're right. The Jets, they've gotten better, obviously at quarterback, obviously not obviously at running back, but they got a lot of help at running back because I think they were pretty good at running back already. but they got some help there. Their defense is solid. Again, if they can put it together, and if Aaron Rodgers doesn't lose his mind before the end of the season, they could be there. But the dude's unstable now. Like I don't know what's happened to him over the last few years, but he's unstable. So you just don't know if they
Oh,
lose a couple games or somebody asks him the wrong question. This dude will be like on a flight. He'd be like, "I'm leaving for Amsterdam, never coming back," and Aaron Rodgers is gone.
no, he's gonna find some safe space that's not New York. He's gonna go on like some meditation temple, like in
Yeah,
like
but yeah, I agree. Jets are right there too. So that's a tough one. Let's see, Wes, what do you got at 6?
I get the Jets too. Um, Offensively, of course, they have a plethora of weapons this year. I do think Garrett Wilson is going to be good, not as great as everyone thinks he's going to be, but as long as Dalvin Cook is healthy, I think, and they use him the right way, not just running him up the middle, and
Yeah, throw the ball to him.
playing. You got to play both running backs at the same time sometimes.
Yeah.
And throwing the ball to Dalvin Cook a lot, I think that's going to help open things up. Defensively, yes, stout. Um, I just think that there's so much noise around them that I think it's going to hurt them in the beginning of the season. I actually think they might lose to the Cowboys, which would be, I mean, talk about the two most overhyped teams, the
Yeah.
Jets and the Cowboys, right? That's
Oh,
week two.
geez.
And I think they're going to struggle some off and on during the season. I think it's enough to give them the playoffs, and they're potent. As long as Aaron Rodgers keeps together and doesn't go out with some dumb celebrity that's like really going to get inside his head and screw things up. So, like someone off of Broadway, if he starts going on Broadway during the season and he wants to be the center of attention off the field, hey, it's called win a Super Bowl, and you could dress up as a woman on Broadway. But you got to like Joe Namath did. Joe Namath did it,
Oh
but
man.
after he won the Super Bowl, that's the goal.
Well, there's pressure in New York, that's for sure, right? And it's not like Green Bay, but also, Aaron Rodgers obviously a great quarterback, and he's definitely getting up there in age a little bit. So he needs it. This has got to happen for him sooner than later too. And I think the Jets have set them up to be there. It's just how well they. I be honest with you, I don't like their coach. I'm not a big fan of him. Um, so I think that actually hurts them more than helps
Their
them.
offensive line is a question mark at this point. But I think with those weapons, you can navigate your way through the season with
Yeah,
plug and play patchwork type of offensive line. If you're smart, and I think they're going to be smart about it, but
yeah.
I think it will hurt them in instances. You're going to see Aaron Rodgers complaining on whatever talk show or podcast he's on, like like that type of look a lot during the season. But that's good enough to get them the 6th seed.
Rodgers doesn't take sacks, so that's good for them. Even with a weaker line, he may throw incomplete passes a lot, but he doesn't take sacks. So that definitely helps them in that sense. Um, so let's jump into the last one, 7 seed here. Derek,
I got the Dolphins.
the Dolphins.
I think
Another three teams out of one
yeah.
division, huh?
I think that's. I'm not one to look at schedules. I'm one to look at teams, and I just think these are the 7 best teams in the AFC, and so I think they're going
Yeah,
to all find a way to win.
yeah, yeah.
The
Because
teams are
I mean, it comes down to that, right? At the end of the day, like you can look at all the schedules and all the point spreads and all the things you want, but the teams are going to win. They're going to win, right? And they're going to come up for big games. They're going to beat those teams, right?
right.
But yeah, that's tough though in the AFC to have three out of one division though, because the AFC's
Yeah.
got some good teams.
Yeah.
See, Wes, what do you got at 7?
I got the Dolphins too, but like I said, I got them going 9-8. I think it's I think the Steelers are going to be right there, challenging them possibly. I mean, from there, I just think that I think Tua will stay healthy for the most part. I think defensively they have they got some injuries. I think that's going to hurt them. Uh, I think when you apply pressure to Tua, I think it's some games they're going to make him throw errant throws. He throws some bad throws sometimes.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have some of that. It's a tough schedule. It's not an easy schedule, but I think they do barely make the playoffs just because the AFC South is not going to be competitive at all. And I just think the Chargers are going to implode. They're going to do it for their coach because they want a new coach.
Well, so I have the Chargers here at the seventh seed because this may not be the year of implosion. They're probably on the way. But the problem I have is that the AFC East, I feel like they're going to beat each other up quite a bit. And to have a team sneak in at 9-8, it's hard to then beat a team like the Chargers record wise, who, play in a weaker division. And they're not a bad team. They just have a bad coach. And coaching does matter, right? But in this sense, you got too many good players, to lose too many games. So I
That's
think
what
the
the Chargers
Chargers.
always do, though.
I
Chargers
Yeah,
always have
know.
really great
I
players.
mean, it's the fact that they do have Justin Herbert. I just think Keenan Allen has got a lot of miles. Quentin Johnson is a big question mark. He's got a lot of talent, and they do have some weapons, but I think they give up losses to one game to the Raiders, one game to the Broncos. I don't know how, but they do. It's I think the Brock. I just think that their schedule's pretty tough. Um, but yeah, they'll be. I think they'll be right there. I mean, I think it's a coin flip for any one of those teams. You know.
Yeah, it's that. I think that last two seeds of the playoffs is gonna be for the AFC. It's gonna just be a horse race.
Yeah.
Like it's
Mhm.
it's really gonna come down to
It
the
could. It
wire.
could. It could come down to tiebreakers.
Yeah.
You know.
So not a lot of difference there for us either in the AFC. I mean, Jets, Chargers, basically the only
Are
two
you
teams
shocked that I
we.
didn't say the Patriots?
No, I mean, I'm not. I mean, looking at the AFC, I'm not saying the Patriots couldn't make it, but they're just in such a tough division.
I can.
It's
No,
Belichick, dude. Don't count Belichick out. That's
no.
that's.
I think they could win. I think they could win their first. I think they could beat the Eagles the first week. That's not it. That's all Belichick though. The
Yeah.
problem that I have is you release Zappy, right? And it's almost like you're trying to tell Mac Jones, hey, you know what, buddy? Hey, we believe in you. So we're just going to get rid of our best backup option, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't need a backup in the NFL because everybody stays out hurt. They stay healthy, right?
They released
Get rid of
Cunningham
our best
too.
backup because
Yeah.
we believe we don't want to have there any debate about
Yeah.
Mac Jones being the guy, which there's all this debate about him being able to,
Well, Bill
either end.
Simmons, he's in Boston all the time. And he's like, everyone thinks they're surprised that Zappy got what, but none of you must have watched any preseason games because he was
Right.
horrible.
He was horrible. But
They're gonna, you know what they're gonna do? They're gonna get Will Greer.
right.
They're gonna
Yeah,
either go
because
for Greer or Colt McCoy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But they're still like probably gonna put Zappy on the practice squad
If no one picks him up.
if no one picks him up.
No one picks him up, yeah.
Right.
Because if I'm,
Um,
he's a capable backup.
what's interesting about Zappy is what if they don't take him out when he's on that winning streak when he first replaced Mac Jones? What if they just left him in, plays throughout the year, plays well, wins games? Like what? How different would that guy's career be? maybe they like make a run and make the play because they were hot when he was playing. Like would they win like 4 in a row or something like that? Like,
Well, the same was they did. Gardner Minshew had a nice run. You
yeah,
know, and then they discarded him too, or like Nick Foles. Nick Foles
right.
won a Super Bowl, and they're like, "No, we're good. You can go. We're gonna go Carson Wentz."
Yeah. Speaking of Gardner Minshew, I think at any sign of struggle, from Anthony Richardson, you might see a little bit of Gardner Minshew.
Oh yeah.
No, I don't think so at all. I think they're riding him. They're ride and die with Richardson this year. And
Yeah.
it's not like they've helped. They're like, thank you with the Jonathan Taylor situation. If anyone wants to get me started on my biggest pet peeve, it's like you take a generational talent like Richardson who's raw, and what do? You say you're going to be starting quarterback, and we're going to take your best weapon away from
Right.
you because I'm a dumbass owner who
Hmm.
wants to run my mouth and think I'm smarter than
Yeah.
everyone.
Well, that's why it's tough because, like, aren't you better off like starting Minshew and letting Richardson come along slowly?
Yes, you are. But and then just what it reminds me of is Florida back when they had Chris Leak starting and then Tebow would be sprinkled in as a
Yeah.
freshman.
Yeah, that
This
there's
is what they needed
always
to do.
that.
They start Minshew and then sprinkle in
You
Richardson.
Yeah.
sprinkle them
And
in. You
put him
just
in on the goal line situations, those kind of
some
things, right?
situations. There's lots of situations
Yeah,
that
I
need to
mean, the
play
Bears
10 to
did it right.
15.
They started Dalton and then sprinkled
Yep.
in Fields.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is that they didn't have the team to even sprinkle him in. He just got murdered when he came in, but I don't think the Colts do either. So I guess it wouldn't matter. But yeah, 100%. Like they are all or nothing. But Minshew's looked really good. He's looked good through camp. He's looked good through preseason. Um, so he's formidable, that's for sure.
I think a
But
lot is
again,
going to happen is they're
there's
going to run a lot of hurry up offense in the
Yeah.
Colts.
yeah, I mean,
Because then they can simplify the offense and keep them off guard, just keep going. So,
I can't wait. Again, it's just one of those things I can't wait to see how it plays out. Richardson's really somebody that I want to watch a lot of this year, just to see how he plays and how he adjusts to the NFL game and things like that. I think that's a fun one to watch. Well, we took a lot of time on our picks because we didn't really get a chance to get too much into fantasy football, and so let's talk a little bit of fantasy before we wrap up. Um, we obviously haven't done our draft yet, so if you we don't have to give away too much as we're talking about this, but I want to kind of talk about last year. Obviously, we had our fantasy football league, but just in general, fantasy football. One of the things we talked about was like where people should be drafting their players. What rounds are you taking? What positions at? We talked a little bit about the difference between drafting running backs and wide receivers and quarterbacks early, quarterbacks late, things like that. Uh, you kind of see it play out a lot differently. So, what's your guys' mindset as far as how do you draft? So let's give some audience input, Derek. Like, what's your draft strategy?
well, I'm still not drafting a quarterback until like the 6th or 7th round. That's my big takeaway. I mean, I don't. I did a draft and like people were taking Mahomes in the 2nd round, and I'm like, no,
Or
man.
first round sometimes.
Yeah, and like last year, stupid me, I took Fields in like the 12th round, right? And then he wasn't doing anything, so I released him, and then Wes picked him
Yeah.
up, and he helped carry his team.
Right.
And that's the thing is, you know what? You could get like an Anthony Richardson in like the
Right.
12th. He's in real life maybe not good, but in fantasy football life he will be. I also look at running backs right now. If you get the bell cows, you got to get them
Yeah.
early
Yeah.
because there's so many receivers out there that you can stack up receivers after that. So like in my draft I had the 3rd pick overall. I didn't want the 3rd pick. I hate drafting early. And I took McCaffrey I'm doomed myself because he's
Yeah.
probably gonna get hurt.
But at
But I got
third pick,
McCaffrey,
that's a
and then I
good
took
pick.
Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. So you went
Two bell
running
cows.
back.
Yeah, because they were two bell cows that I know we're going to
Yeah.
get the ball a lot. Because
Right.
you don't want to draft like a running back early that's going to split carries,
No.
right?
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's a problem.
So
Well,
I still ended up with Waddle, Olave, Amari Cooper, uh, Chris Baldwin, Mike Williams, Gabe Davis. So I still ended up with tons of good receivers that,
yeah, because if you look at receivers, like it's deep, right? Like you could go way. I'm looking at the list right now. I mean, you're getting a guy like Terry McLaurin at 23 as
yeah.
far as his ranking. And so that's not 23 overall. That's 23 for receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Lockett, Drake London, Mike Williams. So there's a lot of these guys. I mean, you get Mike Evans at 30. Obviously, Mike Evans is not going to be this year without a quarterback, but he's going to get catches, right?
Right.
Like they got to throw the ball to him. So yeah, you definitely looking at the receiver game this year. God, it's just so deep. It's real deep. But going back to the quarterback thing for a second, I mean, you got Aaron Rodgers as the 16th rated quarterback.
Yeah.
So how, like most leagues, you're barely taking 16 quarterbacks, in your draft, because if you're a 10 to 12 man league, your last pick maybe you grab a backup quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm. That's what I did. I
So
got Richardson was my second to last pick
yeah,
because I took this one isn't it's the defensive players league. So I took a defensive player and then I was like, well, I'll get Richardson because no one's even thinking about taking him.
right.
And of
And
course, you take kicker last.
Wes, you could get Kenny Pickett at 21 for quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, of course that he would totally be my last pick in a 12-man league just because I might need a backup. You know.
Well, I think isn't even Carr like really low too. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
Carr's way down there. Carr's 19 overall
yeah,
or
like
quarterbacks.
these are guys you can get like as your backups.
Yeah. You know,
Mhm.
as I look at this, like it really looks like this year, like running back does need to be a focus for your drafts, because as you get down there, it gets, you get a lot of split time running
Mhm.
Yeah.
backs, you know. I think though you can get guys that do other things like catch the ball, so don't forget Dalvin Cook, but I think like Gibbs, for example, out of Detroit. Like I don't know, he's obviously got, competition, but I think he catches the ball a lot. I think he's gonna get a lot of dump off passes. And in a PPR league,
Well,
that's
and then they trade up for him,
yeah.
so they're
No,
going to give him the ball.
they want to use him for sure, right? But Montgomery, obviously he's solid too, right? So you're definitely not going to get all the carries.
Right.
I
Well,
also
you got
think
Aaron Jones and AJ and Dylan are there. So Aaron Jones is not as prevalent as he used to be.
right.
Even with McCaffrey, you got Mitchell there.
Yeah, that hurts a little bit too. Um, but then it's a guy like DeAndre Swift, he could catch a lot of passes too, if he could stay healthy. So there is some people late in the running backs, but yeah, if you want one of these, workhorses, a poster running back, you got to do it early.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, they were talking like, yeah, when you look at the rankings, it's wide receivers are like in your
Yeah,
top
I mean,
20.
just
It's
everywhere. But there's so many good wide receivers here.
right. I saw, yeah, you could get Devontae Adams in like the second or third round.
Yeah, I mean, he's the eighth ranked receiver. So he's they ranked eight in receivers here. And again, all the sites are different, but this one, Fantasy Pros, is pretty reliable. Um, yeah, I mean, so if your core, if you got him at eight receivers, yeah, you're getting him mid second round, right?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be other guys that go there. Tight end game is a little weak.
It's basically Kelsey or Kittle or Mark
Oh,
Andrews and
yeah.
Waller maybe.
Waller and Hawkinson and Pitts all fall into that like could
Yeah.
be realm, you know. I mean, it's really Kelsey or bust usually
Mm-hmm.
when you're talking tight end. Kittle, you know, Wes made a good point there. Is if he has a big year, he can put up a lot of points. You know, when he was talking
Yeah.
about Kittle
But yeah,
there. So
Kelsey's the only one you take
Yeah.
round 1 or 2, and 2.
right,
And
right, yeah, yeah, I think so. Um, Hawkinson is scheduled to score lots of points, but so we'll see how that plays out.
yeah, I don't really trust Hawkinson. I
Yeah,
don't trust Hawkinson or Pitts or Waller.
Waller, yeah,
Well, the tough thing with Waller is his injury history. If he's not injured, he's going to put up numbers. He'll be like your top 3 tight end
right,
again.
right, right.
And then
Yeah,
Mark
no,
Andrews is always going to be dependable.
yeah, I like the Andrews pick. If you could get him in a reasonable spot, for sure.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
say
going out of my way to grab him.
mm, if you don't grab Kelsey early, then it's just better just to wait and draft running backs and receivers until
Yeah,
like around 5 or 6.
I like Wes had an interesting strategy last year. Did you just draft all receivers?
Yeah. I mean,
There were a bunch of receivers to start with.
yeah, the problem is I did things backwards. I just tried it just because, I'm picking my first pick so late that I lose the running backs I want.
Yeah,
So, it's just because yeah, there's so many running backs that are split time. It's like I, want Aaron Jones, but he splits time. You go down the list and it's just you can't get the guys you want, so you just kind of get the receivers that,
Mhm.
just that dynamic that can at least give you enough points. Then Justin Fields makes up for the rest.
right.
And
Well,
luck
like
into getting Justin Fields. I think the biggest thing is whenever I draft, I'm looking at where my position is, and then I'm like, okay, this is where I'm at. I'm looking at 3 people in that radar around where I'm picking.
Yeah.
And I
yeah,
don't deviate. And I'm not, I mean, if someone drops, then that's great. But I don't ever like, I'm like, oh my gosh, all the tight ends are gone. I better just take this tight end, even though I wasn't going to take one for a few rounds.
right, right.
You don't want to reach.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes, in drafting for fantasy football is, you start to get nervous about not being able to fill that position,
Yeah.
and then you go grab someone at the wrong time.
And then you get into running backs no man's land. And
Yeah,
what I would do in years past is like, okay, I'll just load up on receiver, and it works to a certain extent unless things don't go exactly how it should. But the odds aren't in your favor. But some years it works, some years it does not work at all, and it's bad. It's.
what do you guys think about so I was thinking about this earlier or just before as well, getting 2 receivers from the same team on your team. Like, so Josh had last year, he had Waddle and Hill. And I mean, it paid off for him, right? I mean, he scored a lot of points. He had made it to the championship game. But I was starting to think about that. Like, would you look at, say, like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins,
Oh yeah.
Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, Hill, Waddle? Like, is it bad as you would think it is, or is it okay to draft 2 receivers from the same team?
I mean, it has to take into account what you're getting. So, like, you look at Hill and Waddle, you got 2 differently types of receivers there. Hill's going to get you the big points on big plays, and Waddle's going to get you the receptions. And so that one works. But it just depends on, like, if you're like, okay, I can have Hill, I got Hill, but I have Waddle here, but I could get, and I know you guys don't hate on this, but I could get George Pickens, right?
Or,
And then
well,
you're
let's
like,
say
okay.
in this
Waddle's
example,
better, but Pickens is a number one. You know what I mean?
right,
Pickens
right,
is going to
right.
get targeted more.
Yeah. And so then you're like, well, maybe I'm going to go for the one targeted more.
Yeah.
Well, for example, like in the same area neighborhood of ranking, though, you would have like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, Amari Cooper. So
Right.
ratings wise, those are the guys you have around Waddle.
I would
So
take
what
I would take Garrett Wilson or Cooper over Waddle,
because
even
they're
though he's
number
better.
ones, right?
They're going to get more opportunities.
Yeah, you're saying because they're number one receivers, you think they're going
Yeah,
to get more. Yeah,
I can't even think who else does the Browns have besides Cooper.
right. Yeah, I mean, Cooper, I think he gained a lot of stock last year because people were kind of wrote him off a little bit, and he had some big games last year, so he definitely jumped up a little bit. And then kind of same thing. It's like then you got like a DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett situation, right? I mean, it's so what you're saying is you're are you looking for only teams? Are you trying to get that number one receiver over like a DK Metcalf, or
Well, I mean,
what if it's not two? You're not taking two from the same team, but what if you're just trying to decide on that player who shares catches with another guy?
right. Well, I'm looking at like, okay, am I going to take DK Metcalf or DeAndre Hopkins, right? And then I'm like, well, Ryan Tannehill and whoever is the quarterback of the Titans is garbage. So I'll probably take DK Metcalf there, even though I think DeAndre Hopkins might get more targets.
Right.
What if talking about Tannehill, what if you operated quarterbacks where you have three very subpar quarterbacks and you play and kind of rotate them each quarter, like Tannehill, Malik, and then you got
Levis.
Will
Levis.
Levis.
Then you don't take any of their receivers.
Dude, Will
um,
Levis could be all right. He could be very average.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't write him. I haven't written him off yet. I think
No, no, you
he's
can't.
got a
That's totally a joke because we
yeah.
haven't seen nearly enough of Will Levis. And
Well, he must be hurt
yeah,
too because he didn't play very much in the preseason.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just there's just he's just made some bad throws in college that is there's all sorts of red flags, you know.
Right.
But it's
Yeah.
college, it's Kentucky, who cares?
So
Well,
last
Steve, I
year,
was also going to bring up so
oh
like
my
DK
God.
Metcalf. Yeah, I guess, or is who is the number one there? Metcalf or Lockett?
Technically, I think it's Metcalf. He's the higher
Metcalf.
rated as far as
Right.
but here's the problem. So taking Metcalf last year hurt me a lot because he had good games, but then he had real low games and Lockett had big games. So
Yeah.
Well, see, like I would take Lockett over OBJ because technically Odell's the number one seat or number one receiver, but it's not really because it's Mark Andrews
right,
or Drake London. I'm like, am I going to take Drake London or because they got Pitts?
right.
He's not. He's a named number one, but I think Lockett it gets more.
I think we should just phone a girl right now and she'll probably have the right answer. She's already got it figured out. That's all there's to it.
Yeah,
Sometimes the thing is, it's overthinking it all. Like, in is it?
right.
It's like as far as like Miami, it's a totally different thing last year because hey, you know what? We're just gonna throw the ball down the field the hill, and then when they roll up on it, we just go to Waddle, and then that's where all the yard. I mean,
Yeah, but you're also it's going to be a pass heavy offense, right? I think, as yeah, what you're talking about, you got to look at, all of the scheme, the team, the quarterback, the other tight end positions, things like that. Um, and to the point of, overthinking fantasy football, like isn't that the point of playing fantasy football? So you can overthink everything.
Yeah.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, it's coming up the strategy. Like, if I don't like I want the bell cow running backs, and if I can't get them at this point, you want to talk about strategy? Is like, why not get a Justin Fields? For one, and then get an Eckler if you can get Eckler. Just depends where you are in the draft order.
Well, I mean, Eckler, he's ranked number 4 running back, so he's going to go
Yeah.
pretty early.
I got it on this one. He's ranked 15.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll
that's
take
just
him there.
ridiculous.
No, you're talking 15th overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is fourth as a running back.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's
15th
behind
overall.
McCaffrey, Chubb, and so Bijan Robinson coming in that high, that scares me to take Bijan Robinson at
Yeah.
as
Never
a as
take a
a
rookie running
top.
back.
Yeah, I don't know about that. What about Pollard? What about guys like Tony Pollard and who's the other one? Madison. So you got these guys that are replacing or taking over full-time carries now, but they're not big name or haven't, historically been like top running backs as far as draft. But it seems like to me, those are pretty solid guys to take considering their
Well, I think Pollard's ranked pretty high,
situation.
isn't he?
Yeah, Pollard's he's 6, so he's a lot higher than he's ever been, right? But still, you got 5 other guys ahead of him.
Well, and I think in these rankings, they have Jacobs lower because he was holding out. Because you
Right,
got to
right.
have Jacobs higher. I mean, dude's getting like all their carries.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have Barkley and Jacobs in my mind ahead of Pollard.
Well, yeah,
Derrick
because
Henry.
Yeah, he's at 5th.
I mean, I can't see right now Cowboys as far as like, I mean, isn't there just only Pollard at this point? There's really nobody. It's not running back by committee.
Well, they got
No,
it's Deuce Vaughn would be, but
yeah,
he's a
They
rookie.
don't even have him. They don't number 3 on this depth chart.
yeah.
Oh
You're
yeah,
gonna. I think
he's
Pollard
returned.
Pollard
Yeah,
gets the majority of carries, catches, everything. He's an every down back.
Well, they're paying him too because they franchise
Yeah,
tagged him.
yeah, they're
yeah.
paid. No, Deuce Vaughn's going to get a lot of touches. He's going to be all over the place.
And then how about a guy like ETN also? He's ranked 12th of running backs, but I feel like he's gonna be primed this year to kind of more take over the position,
Mhm.
and have a better year. He's a beast. Like he's gonna be a really good running back.
Yeah, he was good. He helped me. He was good for me last year.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he's a bell cow. That's what you got to
yeah,
look at. You got to prioritize guys that are going to get the ball.
Yeah,
right.
he could break it big. He can catch the ball, and he's a bell cow. I mean, I like ET. He was great last year for me.
Man, poor James Conner. He's really dropped in the rankings.
Dude, I
He would.
totally forgot about James Conner. Where is it?
You know what,
Yeah. Where
dude?
does he play for now?
He's the Cardinals. He's their
Yeah,
only thing to have.
he's the only. He might get the
He's
ball a
gonna
whole
get
lot.
he's gonna get like 30 carries a game and average like 3 yards a carry, but it doesn't matter in fantasy football.
And nobody's
Yeah.
even talked about it. I mean, Connor.
But you got to get in the end zone though. Like a running back's got to get in the end zone because you don't get. I mean, 90 yards with no touchdowns doesn't get you a whole lot of fantasy points.
I
Right.
know. I know.
Well, he'll
Yeah.
probably have
So
like 5 catches too.
right, right. Yeah, he does catch the ball, so that's good too. Um, so yeah, I mean that's a lot of good fantasy stuff there. Give some tips. We obviously, I didn't want to dig too much because we have our draft coming up, so I don't want to try to steal any of your guys' secret picks. But it really does look like if you got to get your running backs early, or otherwise you just got to like kind of feel it out for situational running backs, like who's going to catch the ball, what's their situation. Even like a guy like James Conner could be a decent pick. I think receivers are plentiful. There's obviously some real top guys, but I could look down this list and say, man, there's a lot of guys I'd be happy with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Later in the receiver game.
Yeah, I
And
want.
then
Oh, sorry.
just yeah, last thing with the quarterbacks too, like same thing. I think you're kind of on the right track there, Derek, is that, you know, you wait on your quarterback. If you get late enough and one of the great ones is there, take them. If not, like, you know,
I
come in
got
with a guy like Burrow or Fields or Herbert or something like that, you know?
I got Herbert in the 6th round in this one
Yeah.
draft. I mean, I was
Yeah.
just like, I guess I'll take a running. I guess I'll take Herbert.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking, and I'm like, okay, Herbert's there. I'll
Yeah.
take him in the 6th. The 6th round will be fine because I already had my running backs, wide receivers, and tight end. Well,
Right,
no, I
right.
didn't have my tight end, but I had all my flex, everything else done.
Yeah, so that's kind of I think the moral of the fantasy draft. So anybody listening that your fantasy draft's coming in, hopefully that helps you a little bit. What were you gonna what would you want to
Oh, I
add
was just
in?
going to say the year that Wes took, this was an awesome team. He had an awesome team. He took Julio Jones and Antonio Brown back to back one year.
Nice.
That was a pretty good team.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't mind the back to back pick, because I feel like I can really look at what's there and who I'm going to get and know that like I'm not going to put someone on my radar and then have to wait 5 picks, how many ever picks, and then all of a sudden they're gone. So I don't, but I also, it's then you got so long in between picks
That's
when you got the
well,
back to
and
back.
you do that, and it's great. And then I get a couple running backs who give me virtually nothing, no touchdowns, yards, no touchdowns.
I
And
know
I
I'm
almost
not a fan of
win.
drafting in the top 5.
Yeah.
Too much pressure because then
Yeah,
you end up with a McCaffrey because you have to take him, and then he
right.
gets hurt.
And then you're not drafting again until late in the second round.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's tough though because that middle draft pick's a little scary too because then the top guys are gone, right? And then your picks are just completely spread out, right? You're just you're
Yeah.
right in the
I
middle.
just never trust the top guys because they always one of the top 5 picks always seem it
Right.
never seemed, Jonathan Taylor last year, right? I mean, did you have him, Steve? Was that you?
I
No.
think one of the
What was
No.
what was the year, Steve? You had like the top and was it when Henry and then Henry got hurt?
Well, I took Henry last year.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had Henry last year. Didn't you draft Jonathan Taylor? I thought you drafted.
It could have been, yes.
Yeah, yeah, you
Yeah,
drafted
I had
Jonathan
him.
Taylor. Yeah, you did. I was like, wait a minute, you had
And
him.
see though, that was the thing. I still made the playoffs, even
Right,
with my first pick overall being worthless.
right. Well, because then there's a lot to be said with pickups and waivers
Yeah.
and things like that, right? I mean, just imagine getting Justin Fields when West did, like what that would have done for, especially my team, because I was just back and forth on quarterback so much.
Right. Well, that was because I had Jalen Hurts. So I would have had Hurts and Fields, and
Yeah,
Fields wouldn't have played because
yeah.
I had Hurts.
No, I definitely could have used Fields.
2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns sounds
Yeah,
pretty good to me.
yeah. Well, so
And
does
all
200 yards
yards.
rushing. 200 yards rushing in a game is pretty good too when
Yeah.
your quarterback also throwing for a couple hundred yards. Um, cool. So let's wrap up here. We did kind of talk about cuts. So let's, instead of just going through all of them, any cuts that really stuck out for you guys? I know the Bailey Zappi, obviously, and they cut Cunningham. So you basically cut both your quarter backups in New England. That's one of the big ones. Deion Jones for me was a big cut out of Carolina. I thought that was interesting because you just signed him to a contract and then you cut him. And I also think he's a solid player too. So that's really weird for me
Yeah.
in Carolina.
For me, I know the rookie was playing well, but I was surprised that the Bears got rid of PJ Walker.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I don't know. I'm not super happy with that, but I'm not also super upset about it. No,
I just feel like he would, if Fields got hurt, you could put PJ Walker and he can do
yeah.
pretty much most of the same things. But and then I know this one's dumb, but I just more of amazement is Leatherwood, Alex Leatherwood.
Yeah.
Dude, 2 years and he couldn't make two,
Well, it's a like Jonathan Abram. New Orleans got him. It's those
yeah.
Raiders first round picks. That was kind of weird to me. That was one of the ones that I was looking at. It's like, really, this dude, like, he was like looking like he was going to be a good football player.
Yeah, but he just couldn't cover.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
Yeah, because he
Baltimore,
went, huh? The
Baltimore cut
Saints.
Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, well, Gordon's kind of downhill now.
Yeah, at a running back kind of team though, that's kind of weird because Dobbins is always hurt.
Right.
Dobbins is hurt. Yeah, I mean they're
Well, and we got to realize it's not how it used to be. These guys could be put on the practice squad. It's not,
Right.
it used to be like they had to
yeah.
be
That's
22,
the
24 to 26. Now they can put veterans on
yeah,
there and
but you got Dobbins, you got Gus Edwards, and Justice Hill.
Yeah.
I mean
I mean, I
Lamar
don't
Jackson.
Lamar
Lamar,
Jackson.
Lamar Jackson. Yeah, I don't. And Melvin Gordon, he had fumble problems in Denver, but he still seems like a pretty solid running back.
Well, yeah, you think.
There wasn't a ton of cuts though that I was really,
No. Yeah,
yeah,
just the Patriots acting all weird.
yeah. There were some little ones like I think Desmond King out in Houston. Like
Yeah.
you cut your cornerback that's been starter for you for years, been playing with the first team all training camp and all preseason, and you're like, well, by the way, you're cut.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird.
Kristen Kirksey getting cut.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a couple that like Winovich also, Kirksey, Winovich, and another guy. Like all three of them, I thought that was just weird to cut all those veterans.
Cap
Um,
space.
yeah, yeah. So that was kind of weird, but overall, not a lot of unexpected crazy stuff happening. The trades, I mean, Trey Lance, like, come on, man. I You go after it, you spend all that draft capital, you trade up for him, he barely even ever plays for you, and now you just move him over to Dallas.
Well, I mean, one of these times these guys are going to learn. Uh, Stop trading up for projects. If
Right.
it's not a sure thing, what are you doing? Like the Bears did the same thing.
Oh yeah.
You're going to trade up for Trubisky. Like the dude played like 10 games in college.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, we're going to trade 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance, who doesn't even play Division One.
Right. Yeah. And then you just let him go. Like for nothing.
You got beat out by Sam Darnold.
Yeah. And then I mean, there was a couple other moves like Arizona and like Tampa. It just seems like they really are just tanking.
Yeah.
You know,
I was going
so
to say
there
one
was
thing
stuff.
about the Lance trade is this was what's hilarious. Then like John Lynch comes out and goes, I'm surprised we got a fourth for him.
Right.
Like he was like, haha, we got a fourth out of you idiots.
Oh man. And then all the holdouts and like all this different like this Jonathan Taylor thing, Chris Jones and there was one other one that you mentioned earlier.
Bosa.
Yeah, Bosa. But yeah, so there's a lot of uncertainty, around some of these
Right.
players, playing and starting and playing in these first few games. Isn't Taylor like can't play for like 4 games or something?
Yeah. They left him on the physically unable to play list.
Right, right.
So, dude, so right there, fantasy football,
Yeah, it's a
Taylor's going to
killer.
drop. But of course, you're going to have those guys that just do auto pick. And so he'll
Right.
get picked in the first round.
Get picked. Well, hopefully we could get everybody on the draft so we don't have any autos, but we gotta We got to get some people first.
There's always one person that has to auto pick.
Right. All right, good stuff. Let's wrap it up. This was a long one. But got our HSC picks in. We'll see how those come out. Um, do we want to do we'll do our Super Bowl champions preseason next week. So we'll save that one for next week. So we talk
I'm
about
sure
week
we'll
one.
all be right.
Well, since we didn't have KC making the playoffs
My
last year.
brain almost exploded just thinking about that
Dude.
potential Super Bowl matchup.
Yeah, that was bad last year.
No,
But I think here's what the reality was of last year. Like none of us really liked Kansas City, and like we were like, yeah, they're gonna be down. We're gonna be down on them. We were like, it was a little emotional pick there by keeping them out. And the Raiders were hyped, and obviously you guys were excited.
Not this year.
Never
now
know,
they're going to
man.
be low key because
Yeah, exactly.
off the radar.
You never know. All right. Well, thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Appreciate the listens. Don't forget to take the polls if you're listening. Still, hopefully, it's been a long one. I didn't check the polls this week, so I didn't see if anybody took them. But we'll check it out next week. And don't forget to come back for the weekly picks. So every week of the season, we'll be giving you our picks for the NFL, week over week. Appreciate you listening.
You
We'll see
guys
you
some
next
money.
time.